Okay, so I might kick it off a bit now. So welcome to this week's ARC Center of Excellence for Enabling Eco-Efficient Beneficiation of Minerals signature lecture. I'd first like to acknowledge our traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea, and community. And we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people today. I'll do a quick safety share as well, which is look at the MSDS sheet, or I guess SDS sheet now before you open the chemical. We received a 5 kilograms of fine aluminum powder, which we're going to use in ceramic processing. And before opening it, Laura looked at the MSDS sheet and it says spontaneously combustible when contacting with air. And so we, of course, didn't open it. And in fact, just sent it to somebody else who can use it because we didn't want to deal with it. So yeah, read the SDS sheet before opening. So I'd like to welcome our speaker today, Amy Lamb from Rio Tinto. She's the chief advisor of process development, and she's going to talk about challenges for innovative process development. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you very much, George. It's great to be here today. What an exciting time to be in the mining industry right now. You know, metals and minerals are playing an integral role in the energy transition. For this transition, the world needs an unprecedented increase. Oh, sorry, my slides aren't working now. There we go. Unprecedented increase in supply of minerals. Okay, why is this going crazy?
Yeah, now it went too far.
Yeah, there we go. I'll have to be careful what I touch. Where was I? So for this transition, the world needs an unprecedented increase in supply of metals and minerals. Add to this the focus on decarbonizing our industry, and we see a need for innovation unlike any other time in my 27 years in the industry. However, this excitement and redefined focus doesn't come without its challenges. We must discover, develop, and start up mines faster than we have ever done in the past. And we must do it using innovative technologies to meet the demand of all stakeholders, from government, communities, NGOs, employees, shareholders, and the list goes on. Applying innovation to process development has additional challenges beyond the individual solutions. These include meeting the strict guidelines imposed for project development, the constraints around complex intellectual property ownership contracts, and the risk appetite of leaders in the industry. These constraints have historically resulted in slow uptake of new ideas and a view of the industry as very conservative. To make the changes necessary for the energy transition and decarbonization, we must discover a way to operate differently, and in doing so, change the industry's image. Process development in mining embodies the testing, analysis, and engineering required to produce a saleable product. This can start with either a discovered ore body or a new technology. Both pathways have correctable inefficiencies, forcing extended implementation times for their respective objectives. Discovered ore body project development guidelines typically follow the standard project gating process: proof of concept, order of magnitude, pre-feasibility study, feasibility study, and execution, which can take 10 to 20 years from discovery to production. The objective of this methodology is to progressively build confidence in the assumptions and estimates used for the valuation to ensure the profitability of the mine. Historically, this meant using tried and true technology and thereby perpetuating the conservatism of the industry. Even more concerning, development and adoption of new or innovative technology in the mining industry can take a considerably longer amount of time. Take, for example, the SAG milling technology. The use of lumps of ore as grinding media in mechanical equipment dates as far back as 1905. It wasn't until the late 1950s that the first 18-foot by 6-foot hardened autogenous mills were installed in Quebec. According to Bertrand Robinson in his 1980 paper on the history of autogenous grinding, the hardened mill installation, quote, broke the dam of professional hesitancy and serious consideration was given to wet autogenous grinding by small and large ore processors alike, end quote. If it takes 50 years for significant innovative breakthroughs to come to fruition, how are we going to meet the world's needs in the next 10 to 20 years? The innovative technology development process involves several steps. You start with an idea, evaluate a proof of concept to see if that idea has any legs. You then pilot the concept to determine its value and demonstrate it at scale. Finally, you implement. The objective of this methodology is to prove the technology works at different scales and to confirm the assumptions for the value it can add for a given application. By keeping these two methodologies separate, we condemn ourselves to perpetuate the conservative image of the industry. The challenge we face is how to combine these two methodologies to more quickly, dare I say it, more agilely, develop new minds that utilize improved technology. This is not a problem we haven't grappled with before. The risk aversion of the industry has not allowed process development to be innovative and has frustrated process engineers and metallurgists for decades. The difference today is the burning need for change being imposed by the world we live in. Whenever there is a discussion about new technology, inevitably, the topic of intellectual property will arise. The constraints imposed by IP processes inhibit our ability to apply new technology in the name of protecting either the inventor's rights, a company's competitive advantage, or a university's funding model and reputation. I am not an IP expert, but in my view of IP is quite simple. IP resides with the entity that created the invention, or IP, regardless of who is paying their salary or who has contributed funds to the project. Having to negotiate complicated IP contracts adds time and cost to projects, and we don't have that luxury. Surely there is a better way. In a recent discussion about a new technology, I was informed that one mining company has an interesting strategy regarding IP. They simply have no interest in owning it. They negotiate contracts for right of use of new technology, regardless of how much they have supported the inventor. Contracts get signed within weeks, not months or years. Rio Tinto has created a commercial vehicle to be able to share its primary copper heap leach technology with other companies. Newton, the name of this vehicle, creates partnerships for right of use of the technology while maintaining ownership of IP within Rio Tinto. These are just a couple of examples where companies are thinking differently about IP. If we're going to implement technology at speed, everyone from inventors to companies will need to adopt a more collaborative mindset, as displayed in my examples. We all have a part to play. This is the challenge we must face. Innovative process development is risky. Financial risk is introduced if the valuation assumptions around scheduled production, capital expense, or operating expense are not met. Technical risk is introduced if the technology does not work for the application. Safety risk is introduced if hazards associated with the innovation are not well understood. These risks are mitigated throughout the conventional project development processes described earlier. But to achieve what the world needs from the mining industry, to be able to do it faster, we need to be willing to increase our risk appetite. Risk appetite is demonstrated by the decisions that we make, not by the espoused vision or purpose we create, or risk appetite statements we write. Our risk appetite must be aligned to the vision, purpose, strategy, and goals of the business. Many companies now have a vision and purpose that are aligned to what the world is demanding from the industry. For a company to achieve their vision and purpose, leaders must align their decisions and hence their risk appetite to the strategies agreed to achieve that purpose. We as leaders have a duty to challenge decisions to ensure alignment to the company's goals. We also need to accept that not every project will be a success. By taking risks, we give ourselves permission to fail and to learn. As we learn, we improve not only the technology, but we improve our industry to be less conservative and more open to doing things differently. I recently visited a small greenfield project to review their progress. One of the questions I was asked to answer was whether we should continue with the investment. This project, while small, is implementing innovative technologies and processes that have the potential to change the way mining projects are developed. My response to leadership was that if we are committed to our purpose of finding better ways to provide the materials the world needs, then we should keep a close eye on this project to learn how we can do things differently. This project has lower economic risk and therefore provides the perfect opportunity to develop and test the efficacy of potential innovations. I am committed to challenging decision makers to ensure our risk appetite and vision for the future are aligned. Are you willing to commit to that challenge for the benefit of the industry and the world? In summary, innovative process development has challenges that we must face. Project development methodologies for new ore bodies and new technologies need to be integrated to meet metal production forecasts. New ways to protect IP in a simpler structure are needed to alleviate constraints for the application of innovative technology and processes. And demonstrated increase in risk appetite by decision makers is needed to ensure the vision for our future can be achieved. Naysayers in our industry will look at metal demand forecasts for the energy transition and decarbonization goals with cynicism, calling it impossible. Conservative thinking and status quo are going to be blockers to making the changes necessary for what the world is asking us to do. We must change that thinking and our conservative image and do things differently. To quote Jonathan Swift, "Vision is the art of seeing what is invisible to others." We must envision a world of the future, a future that comes with big challenges and the need to innovate. It is an exciting time for the mining industry. We must act with an open mind and willingness to take risks. I hope you will join me in tackling the challenges for innovative process development. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing with us, Amy, with your vision and the challenges at a really high level. And it's very interesting. I certainly agree with you in a lot of those things, and it's nice to see people in industry, talking about it and looking for ways to solve these issues, particularly with the long time to implement and develop and implement new technologies. And the one which has always bothered me is the IP. The university lawyers will argue with the company lawyers about IP, which in 9 times out of 10 cases will never exist, right? Or be of no value. So it would be great to have a simpler, a faster, but still equitable way of dealing with the IP.
Yeah, the IP, we have the same issue on the company side as well. And one of the key things that we've been discussing in Rio anyway is that, the IP discussion needs to happen earlier in the process. But we also need to be pragmatic in our approach to IP as well. you know, if we have no interest in owning the IP, then let's take that stance.
Yeah.
And you know, there are situations where there is no IP to even discuss. So absolutely, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, Lisa, please.
Oh, thanks, Amy. That's a really great sort of general overview of the state. I have two questions, I guess. One is, you gave a very general overview, but can you share with us perhaps what are some of the more pertinent, urgent research areas right now for Rio Tinto?
There are lots of them, really. I mean, for the energy transition, you know, we need to find more mines, and you know, we're doing a lot of innovative stuff in the exploration space. You know, trying to figure out where the next ore body is going to be. In the processing space, you know, the carbon footprint is high on the list. Even reducing the amount of land, you know, the size of our processing plants. One way to do that, you know, looking at the ore sorting technologies, and the coarse particle flotation projects that are happening are quite key to that, because if we can coarsen up that grind, we can reduce the amount of energy that's required and design smaller plants to get the same amount of metal out. So, I mean, those are two examples of technologies that we're looking at at the moment. So,
thank you. I have a second part to my question.
Mm-hmm.
So, traditionally speaking, when one is engaging with industry on introducing new projects and new concepts, the idea of fast fail has been very popular. So the whole notion is that we get a whole lot of ideas through, we see which one of them fail, and we go with the ones that succeed. And from my experience, fast fail model means a lot of things fail very fast. Is there a plan to revise the fast fail model and perhaps give ideas more of a chance?
There are. I guess one of the things that we're looking at is the idea of this incubator. And while there are lots of iterations, when something fails, you don't necessarily have to throw it away. It just means let's rescope and see, okay, we need to try something else. Same idea, but just try it in a different way. And so that's really what the incubator concept is about. And it's also being clear about the criteria for killing a project. And you don't want to kill a project too soon. I completely agree with you, because you know, things don't work the first time, but and that's that learning piece, you know, and it just because an idea, the first iteration of an idea has failed doesn't mean that you throw the whole idea away. You know, you do have to iterate several times, and that's kind of the approach that we're looking at.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Please just raise your hand or just unmute yourself and have a chat. Yeah, I'm also frustrated about on the long time taken to get things. I mean, I understand part of it because there's already existing plant which is operating and has a lifetime of, you know, 20 to 40 years perhaps, and so you've sort of got to implement things slowly. But there will come a time, I think, soon when things are going to have to change more rapidly, because as you're alluded to, we're going to need a lot more copper, a lot more lithium, a lot more nickel, cobalt, and rare earths, and we're not going to have 20 years to develop these new technologies, because we need these minerals in 5 or 10 years.
I also think that there's, in a lot of cases, the development of new mines is not, the constraint is not that whether we can technically do it, or that, the amount of time it takes to get through the stages, the project stage gates. Sometimes it's the government's, the permitting timelines that it takes to meet the regulatory requirements. Or sometimes we have situations where the community is not engaged with the project and doesn't support the project. And so we have to do work in the community space as well. So I think one of the things that needs to happen in the next few years, if we are going to actually get more metal into the market, is the governments and the communities also need to come on this journey with us. It's all well and good us identifying that we're going to have a copper cliff, in 2032, or in the somewhat near future, in order to meet the energy demands, which the governments and society are putting on us. But if we're still regulated in the same way that we are today, then it's going to be very difficult for that to happen.
Yeah, let me respond and then I'll let Bill speak. So that echoes what our speaker 2 weeks ago, Eleanor Lebre from Sustainable Mining Institute in UQ, talked about, not the mineralogical complexity of the mine, but the social, economic, and governance complexity of mines, which can be, as you're alluding to, be very difficult to manage, even more so than the technical challenges. Yeah. So Bill, yeah. Go.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that. We've been having this conversation, and it's even more pertinent for the critical minerals area. You could find a 0.02% copper deposit and make it technically feasible at it, but you won't find it, get investment. You won't get past regulatory systems in a reasonable amount of time. And the other thing is infrastructure. Of course, most of these deposits are in remote areas, and if they're far away from power or any water at all, that there's issues there. The investment issue becomes even greater with critical minerals, and the technologies to get them out, either from a primary commodity project or from tailings or as a secondary commodity. You could make it fantastically viable technically, but the investment pool in Australia is pretty small, and they worry about sovereign risk and supply security. Where's the investment going to come from? Well, overseas. Well, there goes your sovereign risk, etc. Right? And there's all this talk about having manufacturing industries based around critical minerals, for which you need copper as the connector and the communicator, or the enabler, to use the word that's often used. It's very well having a manufacturing industry with no feedstock supply, because it's still got takeoff agreements overseas. So there's a lot of things impacting on this. But the first thing, I think you're right, is some kind of streamlining of the regulatory process without compromising the E, S, and the G. Yeah. And that includes the community engagement and bringing the people on. I mean, the mining industry has an image issue. You might have 90 companies that behave pretty well, and one does something wrong, and it sets you back decades. Yeah. So that's the landscape, I guess.
Yeah, I completely agree. And one of the things that companies need to do as well is understand their non-financial value of projects as well. So there are a lot of opportunities out there that are fantastic in the environmental or safety or social space, that some innovations out there that are amazing, but it's very difficult to put a dollar value on that. And And it does get into this being willing to increase our risk appetite for some projects, and the critical mineral projects are absolutely in that space.
Well, an easy dollar value is the number of years of productivity lost.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, that's often difficult to get that way of thinking across the line with some of the executives.
Mhm.
Sorry, I shouldn't.
Anyway, thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thanks.
Candace, do you have a comment or question? Yeah.
Well, just Amy's thoughts on Amy, do you think we can actually meet the demand for the critical minerals with the way we do things? Or does the mining industry actually need to have a reckoning with society and say, look, if you want us to produce metals in an acceptable way, you're going to have to pay more for them?
Yeah, I think we might be getting to a reckoning stage, to be perfectly honest. I think, and that does manifest itself into higher commodity prices and stuff, because that demand, unless we go on a different trajectory with the energy transition and society as a whole in the world decides that, oh, we can slow things down, then that is going to be the outcome, is that we won't have the metals and the demand will remain the same. And so of course it's just natural economics, the demand stays high, but the supply is down, so the price has to move. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. So, but we'll do our best to try and navigate through that, bring minds on faster as much as possible, but there's only so much we can do, and we need to be working together and collaboratively on this effort.
Bill?
Yes, sorry, I don't want to monopolise, but Candace's question flagged something important that's connected, and that is the provenance issue. So being able to show by some kind of fingerprint, etc., that your source of copper is come from an ethical source, for example, or a green source, or one that comes from a jurisdiction where there's what do you call a high social capital? No modern day slavery, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So there are interesting things afoot in that area, and perhaps linked to a premium price for ethically sourced copper.
Yeah, that's what the same thing. I was thinking the same thing, Bill. Is it once the price goes up, because the supply goes down, and the ethical companies are mining with zero carbon and more sustainably and less waste, zero waste, et cetera, then that high price will drive other actors where regulation or where there's not as much control to as you say, produce things in a less ideal way, and that greed will drive. So you're right, Bill. If you do need a kind of way of documenting where the material came from, and to put a higher value on those which are produced sustainably and ethically. Yep,
there is a small program within the Copper for Tomorrow CRC that's looking at that. So something that survives the whole value chain and linked to ESG, but in terms of who customers might be, and them wanting to also prove their ESG credentials by saying they've got their feedstock for whatever they're manufacturing from a good source. There's a lot of marketing in that as well, of course, apart from doing the right thing.
A lot of marketing, and how do you prove that as well?
Yep.
Just before Lisa goes, I'll just say there's also a program in the Future Battery Industry CRC on the lithium, the fingerprinting of the lithium to see where it came from.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Lisa. You're still muted.
Yeah, okay, I'm unmuting. Amy, wow, you're getting a real grilling here. So
that's
which is
all
good.
right.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful. I want to change tack a little bit and talk about things that are not technical.
Mhm.
So within the center, one of the great things that we've got going for us is that we've got a really strong equity and diversity program happening with a lot of really great initiatives with Ellen Moon, our leader. Rio Tinto is a company that has been at the forefront of, I guess, a corporate level reckoning with the concept of sexual harassment, with the and workplace bullying, with the project report that came out last year, at the beginning of last year. Do you? This may not be your area of expertise, but do you think that there is any advice that a company that has gone through this level of corporate attention to the subject, is there any advice you can give to us for our ways of doing equity and diversity approaches that we could implement within the center?
You're absolutely right. That's not my area of expertise. However, I can give you my personal opinion on some of that. One of the things, so I had left Rio for about 7 years and decided to make the jump back. One of the things, and I made that decision after the Everyday report came out. The Everyday Respect report had come out, and also after the Jukin Gorge incident as well. One of the things that really stuck with me with making that decision to come back to Rio was, given those situations, was I could see that they were on a cultural journey to change the way that they work, and trying to and they were completing actions that I could see, and they changed their values, we changed our purpose. We're going through this cultural journey to change the way to change the way our workforce works together and stuff. Now, part of that obviously is the equitable side, the gender equality, gender, race, whatever lens you want to put on it. But that diversity lens is quite important, and we have a strong area, a lot of strong focus in that area. And I personally don't think that quotas are the way to go, because you also need to make sure you get the capability. The thing that you need is capability, and setting quotas, in my view, is not necessarily the way to manage that. However, making sure that you at least have that diversity in your pool of recruits and stuff is quite key. I don't know if I'm going down, I don't know exactly what your objectives are in this space either. So I'm more coming at it from a recruitment and side of things, but
yeah, that's a very pertinent point. Recruitment and diversity within recruitment is a very strong area of focus for us, where we're constantly trying to figure out how to improve our recruitment practices to get better diversity in the center.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's not an easy answer, because naturally there's in engineering and in the engineering disciplines, there's you often can't get 50% distribution of females. Just talking about females, it doesn't, that to me doesn't make sense, because you don't have, in our engineering degrees and stuff, you don't have 50% females in the pool of candidates. So it's just managing that and making sure that you are looking out for the diversity, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be there, that you're going to be able to get there. That's why I don't like quotas. But
I guess one of the things is in the job description, making the job description attractive to women rather than, you know, something which is just more attractive, you know, mineral processing always attractive to men. It's one thing we try to do.
Depends on who you are. I actually find mineral processing quite attractive.
Of course, yeah, many women do. I'm not trying to, but there are many women.
Sorry, I'm just giving you a hard time, George. I apologize.
That's all right. Ellie.
Thanks, Amy, for an interesting talk. And just following up on Lisa's point, I guess one of the things that we are interested in is how we can help to increase retention as well. It's not all about recruitment, but also how can we keep them where, you know, where they are. So is there any strategy that Rio Tinto is following or doing something that makes a difference?
Yeah, one of the things, you know, it's especially for women who are planning to have families, obviously parental leave in Rio Tinto is offered to both the mother and the father. So the fathers can take as much time off as the mothers do. Now, they like to, as long as they're the primary caregiver for the child during that leave. So so that's one way to retain female talent anyway. What are some of the other things? I think it's, and it kind of goes back to culture as well. You know, if workforces are psychologically safe and, you know, you don't have the bullying and the harassment embedded in your culture, I think that is a really big driver for retention as well. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Good. A lot of different things we all need to keep working on. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? If not, we might thank Amy again. Thank you very much for a nice talk and a good discussion. And with that, yep, we might just sign off then. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to do this.
Yeah, great.
Thanks for the opportunity.